Hello, my name is Zach Ciota, and welcome back to the HVAC Shop Talk podcast. I'm sitting here in my shop doing some podcasting now because I just feel at home here. I hope that my fan behind me isn't too loud because while I do feel at home here, my home is warm because I live in North Carolina and it is, let's see, what temperature today? I don't know if I can even see it on my watch. I have the iWatch 3, which I just love to death. It's great. Mostly for fitness. For those of you who can see me on the screen, can see that I have evaporated by like 30%. Started out at almost 280 pounds. Now I'm down around 213, 214 on a good day in the morning, first thing before I eat. Been eating a bunch of turkey bacon and turkey burgers and stuff like that, and I'll be daggone if it ain't that bad. It ain't bad at all. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So, just a few things I wanted to talk about today. The first thing is I've been doing a lot of experimentation with vacuum. Right here in my shop, for those of you who are watching, you can see I have my test bench right in front of me. I've been doing a whole lot of vacuum testing with the vacuum rig that I built out of the 1 1/8 copper, and I've added some 1/4 copper on there. That particular test, I was really looking forward to adding the 1/4 copper because I wanted to see what would happen if there was a huge restriction. And let me just go over this for people who may not have watched it on YouTube. If you don't watch it on YouTube and you want to watch it, it's HVAC Shop Talk on YouTube. So, I had this roll of 1 1/8 copper, and I put 4 taps on one end and 1 tap on the other end. It's an entire roll just about. It's like 40 foot long, at least, somewhere in there. So I would put micron gauges on one end. In one test, I tested how close the readings on micron gauges were to each other. So I had a couple yellow jacket ones and then a field piece one because that's what I have. People are like, why don't you try blue vac? So I don't have a blue vac one. I have these 3. Now, though you guys might have seen me with a blue vac one over the years, I typically give a lot of stuff away, or I have given a lot of stuff away, so they don't sit with me for very long because how many micron gauges can you use? So I tested those. They were all pretty close, actually. So what I wanted to do, and, let me go back. When I tested those, the micron reading was like 100. It was really, really low by the end of the test, which was, I think, 20 minutes long. So it evacuated that 1 1/8 roll of copper down to 100 microns or so, just over 100 microns in 20 minutes. So I wanted to compare what would happen if I put a line set length of 50 foot of 1/4 copper and connected it to the 1 1/8 and separated the micron gauges from the pump with that roll of 1/4 copper. And this video is on YouTube as well. It's just a few days old now. So once I connected those two together, it dramatically changed how the vacuum went, as you might assume. With that big, long restriction right there, all of a sudden this thing was taking forever. So in that same period of time, I don't remember if I did 10 minutes or 20 minutes on this test. I think I did. It might have been 10. I'm not positive. I compared a blue vac hose with just a regular 1/4 gauge hose. And the thing was that they were really, really close. Like the 1/4 gauge hose was at like 1900 microns at the end of the test, and the True Blue hose was at 1700 microns, which tells me that if you're dealing with like a really small system, maybe like a small refrigeration system, a mini split system, something that has a small line set or just a small capacity, the larger and more voluminous vacuum hoses may not make that much of a difference. Just because the system itself is so restrictive, it defeats the purpose of the hose, or having the larger size hose. Another thing is, on the 1/4 hose, it has a core depressor, which is very restrictive. You guys have seen these. For those of you who are unfamiliar, at the end of a gauge hose, you might have a small depressor on the inside that depresses a Schrader core, or Schrader valve, whatever you want to call it, to allow refrigerant flow, so you can test or add refrigerant or whatever. So that's very restrictive. So that was included in that 1/4 hose, which part of me is like, if I hadn't done so many of these tests already, and people are going to be sick of them after a while of vacuum, so we're going to switch it up. But if I hadn't done so many of them and I was so inclined, I would actually take that remover out and try the test again without that tiny restriction right there. Because if you look at these things, guys, they're really, really restrictive. It's almost like an orifice or something like that. In fact, it might act like an orifice during some of the liquid charging you would do with like 410A or any of the blends, where the blends are all liquid when they're entering the hose. They hit the depressor and just the whole spot there where the core is at, and they flash, and you'll have it frost up there at the service valve down the line set. So you can see they're kind of like an orifice right there. Plus, you have that rapid expansion going from a hose into a line. Like if you put it in a suction line, you might have a 1/4-inch hose and a 7/8 suction line. So all that rapid expansion will cause a rapid cooling as well, I guess. And that's science for today, everybody. That's science for today. Oh, yeah. So I've been doing a lot of those experiments, and they've been a lot of fun. We're going to shift from the vacuum style experiments to some other stuff. I have just finished filming an entire zone system install. Well, let me qualify that. It's not the entire zone system install. It's everything but the bypass damper. In my particular case, and we're going to examine this as I kind of break down this footage and test the system further, we may not need a bypass damper. I will be installing it because the folks at EWC, who are a sponsor of this show, were nice enough to send me the stuff and the new SBD bypass damper, which has a Bluetooth capability. So it's really, really cool. So we're going to install it just to see how it works and so I can demonstrate it to you guys so you can see what it's all about. Now, there are circumstances, I think, where we might need it, but I might not actually need it. Let me tell you why I think that, and maybe you guys, if you want to comment, of course, you can comment on YouTube because this will be on YouTube for some of you to see. And a podcast is kind of hard to comment on. You can comment on like a podcast hosting site, which is Libsyn, but nobody does that. And honestly, I never look there because no one ever does that. So you can just email me if you want to at hvacshoptalk@gmail.com. That'll be the best way to do it, I think. So whenever I was installing my zone system, what I did was I put 3 zones in. When I designed the system and installed it last year, I had 3 zones. Basically, I have 2 10-inch zones and a 12-inch zone. It's a 3-ton system. This is a Bosch IDS 2.0. So the 12-inch zone is basically the center of the house, which is the living room and the kitchen. It's just a large percentage of the house, large living area. The second zone is my master bedroom suite, which includes the master bedroom, which is decent size, the bathroom, the water closet, and the master closet. The third zone are the other 3 bedrooms and a den. So that's a pretty decent sized zone as well. Now, the one where the den is at, it's a pretty short run to that zone, so it's a 10-inch going to that point because it's not very restrictive. It's not a long run. The one to my master bedroom is a decent long run. It's like a 25-foot piece of flex that goes from the plenum that I put on the front of the air handler to the short metal trunk that I ran for the bedroom. So what I did was I enlarged that flex to 12-inch just to make sure we get the same amount of air because I lowered the resistance, basically lowering how much, static pressure will be in that duct. I hope I'm saying that right. It's in my mind here. I'm trying to say it correctly. I wanted to make the duct larger so it would inhibit or not inhibit the flow to that area. So I ran 12-inch, but the trunk's actually 10, so I've reduced down to 10 when I get to that point. And that's based on knowing that when you're doing like a manual D or a duct design, you can have a larger takeoff for a smaller overall duct. Like say you had an 8-inch branch run, but you put a 10-inch collar on it, and that will actually increase flow a decent amount. So that was the premise that I was using there. And so we have a 10-inch zone in the bedrooms, a 10-inch zone basically in the master bedroom, just a 12-inch duct ran to it, and a 12-inch run to the center of the house to the den. And those were all separated so I could zone them at a future date. And, of course, the future date finally came. So I installed the 3 zone dampers, which are power open and power close. I wanted to use power open and power close because they're the most dependable. I don't like using spring dampers any longer because spring dampers, they draw a lot more energy and it's a lot more taxing to those motors because you have all that resistance. And it's just, they're more reliable to have power open, power close. That's what I found. We've done zoning or been around zoning for the last 20 plus years, all the way back to, I can't even remember some of the names. I know California Economizer. There's like a thermal something. I can't remember all of them. We used EcoJ. We've done Honeywell. There's so many of them. I know there's more April Air. There's so many different types of zoning out there. We've done so many of them. Learned that the spring dampers, they'll die first, basically. They die first. Power open, power close is the way to go. That's what I installed. There are 3 wires. One wire for the power open, one wire for the power closed. This is 24 volts, by the way. And then you'll have a common that runs to the damper. Whereas the spring damper, you'll have two. You'll have a power to whichever function is powered, either power open or power closed. And then you'll have a common. So I installed the 3 dampers. I built a little, like a plywood OSB stand for the zone panel itself. I tried to dress it up so you don't see a whole bunch of wires everywhere. I really don't like seeing wires everywhere. Like my dad said, if it looks good, it probably works good. And he's right about that. If you take the time to make something look good, it'll probably work good too. So I installed that. I added a transformer to the air handler because the zone dampers require their own power source, because the transformer that comes with an air handler, and I think typically they're 40 volt amps or VA, they can't handle a lot of extra load of thermostats and dampers and stuff like that. And of course, zone panel, you're adding thermostats, you're adding dampers, so it taxes that transformer, so you have to add a separate transformer. So I added a transformer. I put the fuse inline in the transformer. I actually had a transformer down here. I don't know what it was from, but I'm glad I had one. I was kind of thinking that I did, and everybody's shop is like that. You go down there, so I think I have a contactor. I think I have, let's make it more specific. I think I have a 3-pole contactor that I bought 5 years ago, and that's what it was like. And I did have it, and I had a fuse already in line with it, so I was like, hey, pay dirt. And now looking back, I'm remembering that when I put the little red stay-cons onto the fuse inside the air handler cabinet, I did not wrap them with tape. So I look forward to that shorting out 3 months from now after I've totally forgotten again, because I'm not going to remember as soon as I'm done here. That's how that works. I will not remember. So I added a transformer. This is back to the zone system, by the way. I digress. Added the transformer. Got the zone panel in. Got the dampers all wired up. Got the thermostats all wired up. For thermostats, boy, I use just the dirtiest, cheapest piece of junk that you guys would ever think of. And I don't think they're pieces of junk. I just think they're cheap. Walmart, Lowe's, basic Honeywell R-Series thermostats. R-Series, the R stands for, are you serious? No, it doesn't stand for that. It stands for basically homeowner grade, because you'll have the T-Series or TH or T's, or like the Focus Pro 5000s or the T4s, T6s, stuff like that are built for contractors. These thermostats are built for just Johnny Jump Up goes to Lowe's and he wants to have a new thermostat for his house, and that's what he gets. They don't even have commons. A lot of these don't have commons because they assume you're replacing something from way back in the day and you may not have a common to spare. And if you start adding wires for homeowners will start wiring things wrong, and then the world will be destroyed or something like that. I don't know. It's in the Bible. So I put those thermostats in. They're just the basic heat-cool thermostats. They're not heat pump stats, even though I have a heat pump. And with a zone board can be set up so you can tell it, or this particular zone board and a lot of others can be set up so you tell it this thermostat, either individually or as a group, all of your thermostats are heat, cool, or heat pump stats. Now, you sacrifice some control, like on the EWC board, you no longer have an emergency heat function then that comes directly from the stat, which I don't really care about. There's a switch on the board that can turn the system into emergency heat overall. And like I said, all this stuff is going to be on the video. So if you're watching my YouTube channel, the HVAC Shop Talk, did I just say the HVAC Shop Talk? I think there's probably only one, so I can probably get away with that. We're going to have that on the video. The video's, like, when I go to edit it, because I have all the clips shot, the video, there's probably going to be like an hour's worth of stuff there. I don't look forward to this, because I'm about to do that after I'm done with this, kind of edit it out. I'll be doing that, and I love the final product, but sometimes the trip to get there is long and weary. There's like a lot of stuff that goes into it. But it's worth it, guys, because you get a better product at the end. You just got to work hard at it. Just like everything else in life there. Work hard at it. So I used Heat Cool Stats. I don't remember the model number, but they're like $19 thermostats. They're like the cheapest thermostats ever. And the reason is because, hey, man, I'm a podcaster. I got 4 kids and a mother-in-law. I can't be buying what you guys would buy, Nest thermostats. I can't go out there and buy the Nest that all of you like. I'll have to save up and buy like a Nest or a Google Round or a Honey Circle or whatever, whatever is hot nowadays that learns and watches you while you're sleeping. I don't have one of those stats. I just have a regular stat. You just turn on and off. In fact, my stat is so simple. There's an actual slider that goes from heat to cool. A slider, guys. Can you even imagine that? Just wrap your mind around that. I can't even get on my phone and pluck cool on my phone and have the thermostat go, computing, turn to cool, set to 65, freeze mother-in-law. She will start complaining. She will continue complaining. Let me change that. She will continue complaining and not be able to pick which dinner she wants. That's a separate issue for a separate podcast, guys. All right, I just want to talk about some of that stuff right here. I'm going to take a little break here, and we'll come back, and I have a little bit of something else to talk about, so stick around, folks. As you guys know, I think that reading the Bible and dedicating things that you do to the Lord is a very important thing to do. Now, not all of you are on board with this, and I realize that. But as usual, I'm going to ask you to humor me and stick around for the next little bit, because it'll be beneficial not just spiritually, which I think is the most important, but also to your work. So what basically I'm doing here is saying, all right, it'll benefit your work, so stick around for that reason, and maybe the other reason will manifest itself, which I think would be wonderful for each and every one of you. So I'm looking here. I have my Bible. It's an ESV, or this Bible's an ESV because that's the one I have down here. Most of the time I'm reading NLT because my bro Justin Beaver turned me on to a Bible you can actually understand. King James. King James is very difficult for me. I mean, I feel like an idiot when I read King James because I'm like, what thee, thou, what now? Thou hast, what? Jesus didn't talk like this. That's what I'm saying. So I'm looking at a book called Colossians, Apostle Paul, and I won't get too much into it because it'll, take the rest of the show here. The Apostle Paul was writing a letter to the church at Colossae, and in chapter 3 of this, there's a verse that's very familiar to a buddy of mine named John HVAC out there in California. He used to always put this at the end of his videos, and I think it's very important, more important every time I look back at it. And this is Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. It says, whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men. And I'll go on to verse 24. Knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. For the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality. So the important part there is, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. And I got to thinking about that. If you're working in your job for such a higher purpose, like the Lord himself, then you are going to take more care. You are going to temper your temper. And you're going to be a lot more understanding. Now, we all have disagreements we have with people at work. We all have disagreements with customers. We all have bad days. And we've all lashed out. I mean, who among us hasn't punched a person in the face before? You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's that's too dramatic. Who among us hasn't thought about punching somebody in the face before? Or maybe dropping the hammer on somebody, maybe giving them the elbow, little AJ Styles, maybe the high knee, something like that. Little Daniel Bryan, something like that, I don't know. I imagine that myself from time to time. But what keeps you from doing that? What keeps you from those bad things manifesting and coming out of you? Well, maybe they do come out. Maybe you're saying to yourself right now, well, Zach, I don't stop any of those things. I knee people and punch people constantly. And I say to you, you need to talk to somebody. You need to seek professional help. But that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is there something that lives inside of you that can help temper those aggressions and those moods and help you treat people better than you would otherwise? And I say this, that I submit to you guys that reading this stuff and learning about what Jesus has done for us and what God has done for us, you sort of get, there's no way to pay him back. There's no way, and that's the design of the situation. The design is to have faith. You don't pay God back or like, I'm going to do a good thing, and then you're going to say, all right, come on up to heaven. You've earned it. You can't earn it. That's the beauty of the system. You can't possibly earn it. Only through faith. You get God's grace through faith. So if you sort of dedicate yourself to everything you do, in this case, we're using work as an example, working like you're doing it for the Lord, like you're actually submitting like you should to the Lord, following his rules, acting as though, well, acting the way he would want you to act, and you're going to be successful throughout your career. Because there's many things that happen there. You're no longer focused on money. Like, I need money. Money's number one. Money, you ever heard that money is the root of all sorts of evil? Well, that's from the Bible. Money is the roots of all sorts of evil. If you can have contentment without those things, there's a freedom to that. There's freedom to not having to buy new things or have shiny new objects and stuff like that. There's a freedom to that where you can enjoy life for what it is, a gift from God. Now, it's hard to do that. It really is. So getting reinforcement through reading the book here is a good thing. That's what I try to do. It does reinforce, but there's many frustrations that still arise, and it's hard to deal with, but not as hard as it would be. And I would suggest that you guys check that out. I mean, you can read Letter to the Colossians from the Apostle Paul, but it's really better to read something like the Gospel of John, which Matthew, Mark, Luke, John is the fourth. That's how I figured that out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I'm sitting here saying it to myself. The fourth gospel that's in the New Testament of the Bible. And maybe you're somebody who just could care less about this sort of thing, but you could still read it for the fact that it's a great book. You can look at it that way. You can look at it as the world's best self-help book if you want to look at it that way. And it will help you out immensely, because this goes hand in hand with one other thing there. We have our verse, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. Because if you take men out of the picture, men are imperfect jerks sometimes. They do things that make you go, I'm going to, like I said, punch you in the eyeball. I'm going to suck you in the what have you. It's kind of like an old way of speaking. I'm going to give you the comeuppance, and you're going to get it, and you're going to have it, and you're going to get it then again, and whatever. All right. I'm sorry. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. Because let's go back to a little something else. We talked about John. Let's talk about Matthew. Because the Gospel of Matthew, which leads off the New Testament of the Bible, and basically New Testament is just a new covenant where Jesus comes and replaces the old law that was in place in the Old Testament. Man, we can talk about this all day, but I want to talk about it in respect to HVAC, because even though I want all of you guys to go toting out your Bibles and reading them all the time, I realize that this is a HVAC podcast, so I have to tie it together, at least loosely, so I can justify bringing it up. So that's what I'm going to do. So I bring it back to something that I've actually talked about on Shop Talk before, which is the golden rule, which is Matthew 7, verse 12. So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide, and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter it are many. And the gate is narrow, and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Summary: do unto others what you want them to do to you. And that's just so simple, so simple. And narrow gate part's just the fact that so few people do this sort of thing. So few people will make that choice and follow that way, and it's kind of sad. But I want you guys to do it, and I think that hopefully that helped. If it sparks any interest, you have any questions for me, you can email me at hvacshoptalk@gmail.com. I hope that you do. I think that you should. We're going to talk more about some of the experiments that I'm doing. Of course, we'll have some guests back soon. I wanted to go over some things that are going on currently, what I'm working on, and I hope you look for the videos on YouTube, because we're going to have a lot of fun, guys. I love recording down here. This is a lot of fun. I think I'm going to continue doing this. I'll be daggone. I'm trying to silence my notifications, but they just keep on coming. I'm just going to skip that one. I'm going to let you guys hear that ding, all right? Okay, like I said, I hope the fan wasn't too bad back there. It's a Ryobi, so it's probably perfect. I mean, just because Ryobi by nature is perfect. Much better than Milwaukee. You can email me and let me know what you think about that at hvacshoptalk@gmail.com. Justin Beaver, do not email me about it. I already know your opinion. Along with Brent Ridley, I already know your opinion as well. All right, guys. Hope you had a good time here. New podcast coming out soon. Check us out on YouTube and all that crap. And I will see you guys on the next one.